This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends.
This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Brew Crime. I'm Mike.
And I'm Beck.
And I'm Nina.
And this is our second Half Pint of Crime, our Patreon exclusive episode. But this time we're going to actually release it to everyone, kind of a bit of a teaser. It's going to be a bit of a continuation of one of our last episodes. And this is going to be a story from Nina.
Yes, I wasn't able to get my shit together for the last time we were recording this, but it's ready now. Also, as a side note, I'm the proud owner of Invisalign, so if I have a lisp, it's fucking deal with it. So good. I tried to exclude as many S's as I could out of the story. So if I say Stephen, anyways. Cool. So for my case, I was going to get into it because I forgot we're supposed to talk about the beer first. So I'm going to be doing the story on the West Memphis 3. It's a pretty famous case. I think it was one of the original ones where there was a bunch of documentaries about it before Making a Murderer, and Serial, which I'm sure some of you guys have heard of. Mm-hmm. One or two people have heard of Serial, I think.
What's that animal on the bottle?
It is a koala. So
what?
Oh, no, it's not. It's a sloth.
I was trying to get you to say an S word.
Okay, you're a douche.
Squirrel! Stoosh. An S-douche.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pronounce every word that it said that's on the bottle. That doesn't include that sound.
Yeah.
That sound, which is an S word again. Cool. So this is a rogue beer with a sloth on it. It's called Kulture Clash. It's an Imperial blonde ale blended with Kombucha Tea. It's 6.9% by volume. And it's Townshed's Brew DK dot and the K's underlined. I don't know why. Kombucha. And it's a big green, lime green bottle.
It's super cool.
Did you say Rogue Brewing?
Yep.
Out of Oregon?
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't say Oregon, but
okay.
I believe you. So I'm going to read what it says on the bottle. Culture Clash is an explosive collision with brew, or drive, I don't know, it says DR, kombucha. A fearless fermenter and world-class Oregon brand. By combining the unique tangy flavors of a custom-brewed kombucha with a Rogue Imperial blonde ale, specifically brewed to complement it, we've created a flavorful, invigorating balance of blonde and bold that both kombucha and beer drinkers will enjoy. Oh, sounds like every other beer. Oh, it smells not very good.
It looks nice.
It does look okay. It's a big bottle as well.
Yeah, I think it's either a 650 or a 750 milliliter bottle. I'm not sure.
It's 750 milliliters.
Yeah, there you go. It did seem a bit bigger.
That's what she said. Oh, it's going to be a long day.
It's a pretty cloudy orange color. It's a white head on it. There's a hint of some kind of tea. It doesn't smell kind of sour like most kombucha. Bit grainy, bit fruity.
Have you guys had kombucha before? I've never even had it.
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
I don't hate it.
Pretty citrusy. A little bit sweet. Almost like there was lactose in it or something that didn't ferment out. It's not very funky considering there's kombucha in it. Kombucha is often very funky. It's nice beer though. I was actually expecting it to be a little weirder. No, when Rogue does a colored bottle, it's usually really weird. Like they do a bunch of their Voodoo Donut beers that are in pink bottles. Most of them aren't very good, but they're funky. So I was expecting this to be a really like aggressive beer or something.
It kind of tastes like iced tea.
A little bit, yeah.
Like the fruity
sugary iced tea.
Yeah. Like not good Arizona tea.
I like it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I like it too, yeah.
I'm going to get into the story. So the way that I decided to kind of put my story together is to focus on what the actual facts are of the crime, the media's portrayal of the crime, and then just all the other shit that came afterwards. So let's start with the facts. So 3 8-year-old boys, Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, went missing in West Memphis, Arkansas on the evening of May 5th, 1993. A frantic search of the boys' neighborhood and the nearby woods turned up nothing until the boys' dead bodies were found in a creek bed the following afternoon. Their naked bodies had been badly beaten and appeared to be cut and mutilated.
Oh.
Yeah, no good time. No bueno. Suspicion quickly fell on 3 teenage boys seen as outliers in the community. So you could say there was a bit of a culture clash, hence the beer.
Yeah.
Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly were targeted because they dressed in black, had long hair, and listened to heavy metal music. So in Arkansas, that was considered being different, and different means bad.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad I didn't grow up there. I'd have some trouble.
You and me both.
Yeah.
I know, reading that description,
You might have more.
I was like, I have long hair and I dress in black. Oh, and I don't listen to metal music, so not me. I'm normal in their standards. It's not saying much.
Yeah, you're not a devil worshiper.
You can't be. You have blonde hair.
That's right.
That's how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
I think so. The first report was made by Byers' adopted father, John Mark Byers, around 7 o'clock. The boys were last seen together by a neighbor who reported that they had been called by Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Steve Branch, around 6 o'clock. Hobbs later denied seeing the boys at all. Initial police searches made that night were limited. Friends and neighbors also conducted an impromptu and unsuccessful search that night, which included a cursory visit to the location where the bodies were ultimately found. I was a bit confused as to how they searched there, but didn't find them, maybe just because it was dark and they didn't see the bodies.
Probably didn't look all that hard.
But wouldn't you try to look hard because 3 fucking kids are missing? I don't know. Maybe that's just my maternal instinct, not that I'm a mom, but...
Yeah, I know this case, and like I've watched some of the documentaries, read some of the books, whatever, and I don't understand why there wasn't a bigger deal made that first night.
Yeah.
Like, they're little kids.
I don't know. No idea. Maybe it would have been different if just one went missing. Maybe the 3 just like got in trouble and went something. I don't know. Maybe that was one of the ideas.
Yeah.
I have no idea. A more thorough search continued the following morning at 8 a.m. So May 6th, aided by the Crittenden, county search and rescue personnel, along with several others, they canvassed all of West Memphis, and then they started to change their focus back to Robin Hood Hills, where the boys were reported last seen. Despite a human chain making a shoulder-to-shoulder search of Robin Hood Hills, searchers found no sign of the missing boys. They took a break at lunch, which they took at 1 p.m., and others continued searching. At 1:45, a juvenile parole officer, Steve Jones, spotted a boy's black shoe floating in the muddy creek. A subsequent search of the ditch found the bodies of the 3 boys. They were stripped naked and had been hog-tied with their own shoelaces. Their right ankles tied to their right wrists behind their backs, the same with their left limbs. Their clothing was found in the creek, some of it twisted around sticks that had been thrusted into the muddy ditch bed. The clothing was mostly turned inside out. 2 pairs of the boys' underwear were actually never recovered. Christopher Byers also had deep lacerations and injuries to his scrotum and penis, most likely caused by postmortem animal predation. So, I know I just mentioned that they assumed that this was post-mortem and animal. I'll get into it in a little bit, but a lot of speculation felt that it must have been a satanic ritual because they assumed that his downstairs was mutilated while he was still alive. Obviously, later when I talk about the issues with the case, it's complete bullshit.
Yeah,
But
well, why not jump to conclusions as a backwaters friggin' police station?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, but the way they go at the satanic panic and shit, it's just a joke.
I don't know. I think you never imagine actually something like this happening than actually witnessing it and seeing it. And then I think, illogical conclusions are reached.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to see that, my first idea wouldn't be like, oh yeah, it was the snapping turtles. I'd be like, who cut his downstairs off, right? So I don't blame it right away. But my big issue comes with that immediately they thought it was these 3 boys. They didn't link into any other suspects, nothing.
Yeah.
That's the issue. The original autopsies were inconclusive as the time of death, but the Arkansas medical examiner determined that Byers died of blood loss. Moore and Branch had drowned. A later review of the case by medical examiners for the defense determined that the boys had been killed between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. on May 6th. Rumors of Satanism, ritual animal killings, and even human sacrifice spread very quickly. The police focused their investigation on Eccles as the ringleader and assumed that Baldwin and Miss Kelly as his loyal followers. Damian Eccles was sentenced to death. Jesse Miskelly Jr. was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 40 years. He received 2 20-year sentences in addition to the life sentence, and Jason Baldwin was sentenced to life imprisonment. Why they got different sentences, I mean, I can understand maybe why Eccles got a different one if he was assumed to be the ringleader. By why the other 2 got different ones, I don't know.
I can't remember. Were they all tried? They were tried separately, right?
I believe so, yes.
So every jury will deal with it differently.
Yeah, and I think that was part, which I'll get into, is because Jesse Miskelly made a confession.
Okay.
Well, confession. I'm
Air
using that
quotes.
word lightly with air quotes. The men were convicted based on a witness testimony that he had heard the 3 men talking about the murders and on the confession of Jesse Miskelly, who also implicated the other 2 men. DNA evidence that was collected at the crime scene and analyzed only in 2007.
Jesus.
Yeah, so this happened in 93. In 2007, confirmed that the DNA found at the scene did not match any of the suspects. After many years of legal battles, documentaries, a bunch of celebrities obviously stirring up shit, the 3 Memphis 3 did walk free. I want to go back and talk about the coerced confession from Jesse Miskelly. So, and I don't know if everyone's seen, I'm just assuming everyone's seen Making a Murder, but it kind of felt like what was going on with Brandon, where they're basically kind of suggesting what happened. His original testimony said that this happened at noon, which even the parents of the children said it was impossible because they were actually in class. They were at school. So no way it happened at noon. But through the tapes that I watched in some of the documentaries, you can see where they're slowly suggesting of, "Oh, are you sure? Mm-hmm. Was it maybe dark out? Mm-hmm. Ooh, was there maybe a branch used? Was like that kind of coerced confession?"
That's where I think the police officers need to be let go or possibly put in jail when you start doing that kind of shit. It should be, if it isn't, highly illegal to lead a suspect with total bullshit.
Well, it's not right? But I think that opens a bigger can of worms, because if those officers do get in trouble, then any other case that they had gotten a confession out could now come up in the air. And some confessions may be legit.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one wasn't. It was a gross misjustice. And I guess another thing just to note in regards to Jesse Miskelly is he dropped out of school young. He was very close to his IQ to like almost mental retardation. So, you know, he said he assumed the police are good. So why would they make him say something bad? Maybe I did this. Maybe this did happen. At one point, he even referenced in the confession that, I don't know, maybe I just blacked out. As in, he literally doesn't remember being there. So the only thing that would make sense is him blacking out.
Yeah.
Furthermore, and this also comes up obviously in the documentaries, a bunch of witnesses were actually at a wrestling tournament with Miskelly that same night. So they all came to his defense being like, there's no way he did this. He was with us in like I don't know what the proper word is, but in like a county beside their county.
Yeah.
A neighboring county.
Mm-hmm. They're like, how could he possibly done anything that he had said? Because that night he was with us over here at the specific wrestling event. They were able to recall even like what he was wearing. So confessions, just complete bullshit. The official interpretation of the crime scene forensics for the case also remains really controversial. Prosecution experts claim Byers' wounds were the result of a knife attack and that he had been purposely castrated by the murderer. Obviously, I'm going back to what was on the documentary too, but in the actual crime, in the court, the way that the prosecutor was kind of talking about how the knife was used. So it was a serrated knife. Why would you use a serrated knife to scrape someone's body? That doesn't make sense. What would you, like, what the hell?
Yeah, you use a really, really sharp, like, just straight blade.
Well, that's the thing. He didn't actually make any cuts, so it kind of looked like what would be cat scratches, I guess is a good way to explain it. But why would you? Makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Complete bullshit. And obviously, the castration happened after he was murdered. So if something that I'd read is, okay, well, if this was supposed to torture the child, why wouldn't you do it while he was awake, alive?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Police suspected the boys had been raped or sodomized. Later expert testimony disputed this finding despite trace amounts of sperm DNA found on a pair of pants recovered from the scene. Police believe the boys were assaulted and killed at the location they were found. Critics argued that the assault at least was very unlikely to have occurred at the creek. So, the media. Obviously, this case received considerable attention.
Yeah.
There's 3 children who are dead and naked bodies, hog-tied, kind of like worst, but
Worst
person
case
Like
scenario.
nightmare scene.
Absolutely, right? Horrific. Many critics charge that the arrests and convictions were a miscarriage of justice inspired by misguided moral panic. And something I was going to use is what Mike had said earlier is, satanic panic.
That was like the theme at that time.
Everyone that isn't Christian is Satanist, basically. So, yeah.
It's just nuts. Obviously, I've referenced watching some of the documentaries. The media at this case resulted in several of them. There was an HBO documentary called Paradise Lost, The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills, and Paradise Lost 2, Revelations, and a book on the convictions called Devil's Knot by Mara Leverett, I believe was her name, or pronunciation.
That's a good book.
Good.
I have not read
It was good.
Good. I like the name Devil's Knot. All of these documentaries kind of focus that the convictions were wrongfully obtained and that 3 innocent men are in prison. Another sequel, Paradise Lost 3, is actually currently also being filmed. Something that I also had noticed in the media, because they had said that Damien Eccles, obviously it doesn't help that his name is Damien either, like, Lucifer, but most of the attention was focused on him. I would assume as the ringleader, maybe that's why more of the media was focused towards him versus the other 2. Eccles' case had seen significant support from numerous rock and pop musicians who've popularized the case by staging fundraisers, including benefit CDs, art auctions. Eddie Vedder of Vedder.
You're so young.
Yes.
Pearl Jam, look, I got that one, and Natalie Maines of the Dixie Chicks are among some of the high-profile celebrities who are actively seeking attention to Eccles' release. They even appeared on a segment of Larry King Live.
Wow.
A side note on that, on Larry King Live, Eccles' wife, Lori Davis, appeared. So he met Lori Davis while he was in prison. And I'm single still. But I'm just... Okay. Eccles had also published a bunch of memoirs, Almost Home, His Life Story, Volume 1. He had some poetry that appeared in literally art magazines. He has also written some nonfiction. Yeah. So it's a little bit about the guy. On November 4th, 2010, the Arkansas Supreme Court ordered a lower court judge to examine whether the 3 inmates should be exonerated in the light of the DNA evidence found. DNA from the crime scene was tested in 2007, and the results of the test, and I quote, conclusively exclude Eccles, Baldwin, and Miskelly as a source of DNA. The evidence was tested, the Supreme Court wrote in its ruling. The justice also said the lower court must examine claims of misconduct by their jurors who sentenced Damien Eccles to death and Jesse Miskelly and Jason Baldwin to life in prison. In July 2007, new forensic evidence was presented in the case, including evidence that none of the DNA collected actually matched the defendants. However, it did match Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of one of the victims, along with DNA from a friend of Hobbs who had been with on the day of the murders. The status report jointly issued by the state and the defense team on July 17, 2007 states, and I quote, although most of the genetic material recovered from the scene was attributed to the victims of the offense, some of it cannot be attributed to either the victims or the defendants. One thing I had read out about this is the DNA that was found of Terry Hobbs. He had kind of disputed that. Well, of course, he's my kid, lived with me, da-da-da. However, the issue with what was found is it was a hair sample that was found actually in the knot of one of the hog ties. That's not something you just pick up on your clothes. To me, the way I interpreted that is maybe he was there when this hog tie was happening, because how did it get stuck in the knot?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And I think it's a bit of a stretch to say, well, maybe it was on it because they had used the kids' shoelaces to tie the hogtied, whatever. Maybe it was on a shoelace, but even that, they were known to be riding their bicycles and running around in the woods, whatever they were doing. It just sounds like I don't believe necessarily that it just magically appeared. Okay, so some of the issues with the case. Oh, and I forgot to talk about this when I talked about the documentaries, but one of the documentaries, West of Memphis, was actually produced by Damien Eccles and the Lord of the Rings director, Peter Jackson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's super badass.
Yeah, no doubt.
And a completely unrelated side note to all of this, while I was editing this, I was watching Lord of the Rings because Return of the King just came out on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
I know, spooky, right?
I guess they're trying to put lots of new movies on there because they're losing everything Disney makes.
And I don't know that I call Lord of the Rings a new movie, but...
No, but new product.
New to Netflix.
I see what you're saying. So this particular documentary, West of Memphis, focused on the other suspects, in particular Terry Hobbs, stepfather of Steve Branch, one of the murdered boys. Some of the uncertainties with the case were, first of all, they talked about the genital mutilation. So a lot of this came back, and the assumption was that it was kind of a ritual abuse or something part of the Satanic. That original witness that testified against the guys in court said that the Eccles admitted to cutting the penis and sucking the blood out of the penis, which that's not possible because if the penis was cut off after the child was already dead, there wouldn't be like nothing to suck out because it's not a thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there would be no blood flowing.
Yeah.
Right. This detail caused investigators and in turn the public to believe that some kind of ritual abuse was performed on the boys and that Byers had been singled out for some reason. Abrasions inside the boy's mouth and a particularly large wound on Stephen Branch's face highlighted the prosecution's insistence that the victims were beaten savagely and tortured with knives. Not until years later, after the three were locked away in prison, did it come to light that the wounds were not caused by human hands or weapons at all, but actually by wild animals in Robin Hood Hills. The boys were dumped in a creek in a wooded area, and until their bodies were found, they were preyed upon by wild animals, most notably turtles. So one of the things that's focused also in the documentary is they have an overbreeding of these turtles at this particular creek just because with the marsh and everything, it's
perfect conditions.
Yeah. They actually show in the documentary, it's a bit gruesome, but they drop a dead pig into the water. And what the animals, the turtles actually do, they go for what is looser and easier to bite. So unfortunately, like the ears, the lips, the nose, the downstairs mutilation, it would make sense for the turtle to go for that first because it's not the tough skin of, for example, the torso or thigh or whatever, right? So it kind of makes sense to tie the mutilation that occurred to be simply just the convenience for the animal. I don't know if convenience is a good word to use, but
basically the right word, yeah.
Something else that had come is during the prosecution, there was a testimony that the knife was used to kind of graze the skin. However, they were able to replicate the exact claw marks from the turtles onto these like pig specimens. Mm-hmm. So the three like scratches, let's call them, you can see is actually from the claw mark of the turtles' tootsies, not what would come from a knife.
Yeah.
It was them holding on so they could bite, probably.
Yeah.
Well, it's that and then shifting the body too.
Yeah. Like snapping turtles are so prehistoric looking. Like they're not paws, but do you know what I mean? Like it's big claws. It's not like, oh, a little turtle. No. And they're vicious, like snapping.
And I think something that had come out of this as well was during that particular time, this was actually their mating season as well, where the males are even more aggressive.
Yeah, they're assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Males that are mating are just assholes in general, I think. But
yeah, just tell me that.
Renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Werner Spitz, who was hired by Nichols' lawyer to examine the evidence at the crime scene, he concluded that animal claw marks on the bodies were obvious and that there was no way the injuries on Christopher Byers could have been caused by a knife. There has been widespread criticism of how the police handled the crime scene. Miss Kelly's
Understatement.
Yeah. Miss Kelly's former attorney, Dan Stidham, cited multiple substantial police errors at the crime scene, characterized it as, and I quote, literally trampled, especially the creek bed. The bodies, he said, had been removed from the water before the coroner arrived to examine the scene and determine the state of rigor mortis, allowing the bodies to decay on the creek bank and to be exposed to sunlight and insects. In one of the videos in the documentary, you can actually see what looks like a big cockroach crawling across one of the boys' bodies. So, big no-no. It has to be seen how it happened. Another issue is the police didn't actually phone the coroner until almost 2 hours after the discovery.
What? Why?
I don't know.
Your first thing with that, like, when you find a body, it's either you call an ambulance because they might be alive, or you call the coroner because they're dead. That's the first thing you do. As once the emergency people have shown up, if it's fire, police, whatever, it's like,
Yeah.
get them here.
I mean, but that's, to me, common fucking sense,
Yeah.
where there isn't a lot of that in this case, right?
Oh, I know, yeah.
Officials had also failed to actually drain the creek in a timely manner. Had they potentially drained the creek, it would have maybe had some evidence that could have been left over. You know, as I mentioned, some of the underwear from the boys was never found. It very well could have just washed away. Stidham actually calls the coroner's investigation extremely substandard.
And that's an understatement.
Yeah. I had mentioned Mara Leverett before, who wrote Devil's Knot. She, and I'll quote her as well, said, police records were a mess. To call them disorderly would be putting it mildly. She speculated that its small local police force was simply overwhelmed by the crime, and they probably never investigated something like this, so they just didn't know what to do. They probably didn't ask for help or go for any consultation from violent crime experts. Nothing. So I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't get extra resources if something's above your head, because this is huge. And obviously now that we know that these 3 guys are out, there's a fucking child killer somewhere, or multiple child killers potentially still in Arkansas. Who knows?
That's fair enough. Small county officers, whatever. But fucking ask for help.
But there shouldn't be any shame in that, right? Like,
yeah,
this is a massive crime, I think, had it happened anywhere in the fucking world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, oh, well.
If you are anything like me, you like collecting leaves and flowers for adorable insects. Wouldn't this activity be even greater if you could do it anytime, anywhere? But wait, you can! Best Fiends is a puzzle game that you can download onto your phone for free. You work through progressively harder levels and gain things like keys to help you save your little bug friends. My wife has much better luck picking the good crates to unlock, so I get her to do that part. I just started last week, so I am only on level 33. It's been a busy week, and I can't wait to get back to it. I've already added this to my mental list of things to entertain myself on my next flight, since you don't need an internet connection to play. It's great because it's less so a game for gamers, it's for people like me who like to play a casual game on their phone. Since Best Fiends updates the game monthly with new levels and events, I know I won't get bored of it. Engage your brain with fun puzzles and collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must-play. Best Fiends is a 5-star rated mobile puzzle game on the Apple App Store and Google Play, and you can download it for free. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
Leverett also mistakenly presumed that the crime scene videos were actually shot minutes after the detectives recovered 2 of the bodies, when in fact the cameras didn't show up till almost 30 minutes afterwards. So that's another issue too, because during the court proceedings, it was said that this is how they walked up into the scene, this is what had happened. But it's not true. You don't see the fact that the police removed the bodies from the creek bed, as I had said.
But and if the cameras were there 30 minutes after, that means they called for video cameras before they called the fucking coroner.
Yeah.
Way before.
I'm assuming that maybe the camera crew was already there while they were doing the search. But regardless.
But
I think if the camera
Still
crew was
fucked
there,
up.
they would already have video. You wouldn't even move the bodies without the video cameras if they were there. I don't think most people would anyways without being able to photograph or video it. But still,
none of this makes sense.
No.
I don't know.
The police sound criminally responsible, in my opinion.
I don't know. I personally, from what I saw, I genuinely don't think the police had anything to do with what happened.
Oh, no.
But I know
yeah.
that's not what you're saying, but I think after what had happened, when do you clue in of holy shit, we don't know what to do with this? Mm-hmm. I think, to me, maybe because I've just watched literally every fucking episodes of Forensic Files that exists. But if you see a dead body, you don't fucking touch it.
Yeah.
Right? Where their first instinct was, okay, pull it out of the water. I know potentially if the thought is, oh, well, maybe he's alive. Okay, if they're face down, hogtied in the water, and who knows how long they were there at that point.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to assume most likely it's deceased. The body's deceased, right?
Especially if there's already bugs.
Yeah. If there's a possibility they're alive still, then of course you pull them out of the water.
Different story.
Yeah, pretty obvious they weren't alive, it seems like. And regardless, you would still follow proper procedure regardless, and they're not following proper procedure at any step of this case.
I think potentially maybe they didn't even know what proper procedure was, is because they never planned that what if this happens in our neighborhood, right? It's always, that doesn't happen here. I think it's that mindset as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely a problem in a lot of places, and you shouldn't be allowed to be a police officer without proper training for most cases.
But I think it depends what is considered proper training, right? For them, proper training might not be the criminal handbook of what to do when you find 3 dead children, right? Theirs is more, domestic abuse maybe called. Yeah. Not that that's lighter, but it is more common maybe in these areas versus, 3 satanic ritual children murdered, whatever. Another expert, which you can kind of see his testimony during the Paradise Lost 2 revelations, stated that the human bite marks could have been left on at least one of the victims. There's talk about human bite marks. However, these potential bite marks were first noticed in photographs years after the trial and were not inspected by board-certified medical examiners until 4 years after the murders. The defense's own experts testified that the mark in question was not an adult bite mark, which is consistent with the testimony of the list of experts put on by the state, who concluded that there was no bite mark. The state's experts had examined the actual bodies for any marks and conducted expert photo analysis of the injuries. Upon further examination, 1, they couldn't conclude if the marks were even bite marks. Also, what they were able to for sure determine is if it was bite marks, it did not match the teeth of any of the 3 convicted.
Yeah.
So we don't know if it is or it isn't, but if it is, it sure as shit isn't theirs. In 2011, so after nearly 2 decades in prison, the 3 men were released from prison after entering an Alford plea, which is a rare plea which allows people to plead guilty even while claiming innocence in order to avoid greater punishment.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just not sure what to think about the Alford plea. I mean,
I think it's
just such a sad state.
Yeah.
To have to say, I mean, they don't actually have to say they're guilty. They just have to claim that Alford plea.
Yeah. Alford it pleads guilty, but they don't have to actually say it.
Right. But it's just, that's a sad state to be in. You know what I mean?
So
to know
wrong.
You're innocent and have to do it anyway.
Well, and everyone knows you're innocent because they don't give you that plea unless you're innocent. But they won't let you say you're innocent. It's just dumb.
But that's just a bunch of bullshit. If I know you're not the guilty party. So that kind of concludes stuff with the media reports, with actual facts of the case, issues with the case. But I thought it'd be wrong to also not give alternatives. So who could have done it? So 2 other potential leads is something that came up in obviously one of the documentaries, is there was a man at the Bojangles restaurant. So on May 5th, around 9 o'clock at night, the West Memphis Police Department actually received a call that there was a bleeding African-American man who had entered the Bojangles restaurant, which is actually located near where the bodies were discovered. He had gone into the woman's restroom. Obviously, the staff saw that, freaked out, called the police. Police arrived on the scene, I don't know, maybe 10-ish minutes later is from what I saw. And they questioned one of the restaurant manager, who was Marty King. They actually, this is fucking ridiculous, they questioned him through the drive-through window. So the police actually didn't go
Yes, I remember reading that.
into the restaurant. You have 3 fucking kids that are missing, and there's a bleeding adult in this restaurant close to, because this area was known that the kids went here with their bikes and all that bullshit. You didn't fucking go drive-through window.
Wow.
Drive-through window. The man reported, he had muddy feet. He was wearing a white cap, black pants, blue shirt, blood on his face, arms, and appeared really disoriented. He left the restaurant a few minutes before the police arrived. When employees entered the woman's restroom, they discovered blood smeared on the walls. The officer leaves the premises about 10 minutes after. They actually never stepped foot inside the restaurant to check out what the woman's washroom looked like.
Of course.
Ridiculous. The next day, 2 of the police officers returned to the Bojangles restaurant to collect blood scrapings from the restroom walls. Unfortunately, these were never sent to the crime lab or ever are analyzed, and then later were reported lost.
Fucking hell.
Also, no additional interviews were ever conducted with any of the Bojangles employees about this particular incident. I think it's fucking ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah. They should check between the front seats, because, you know, when you're in the drive-thru and you go to set something down and it falls.
Yeah.
It's probably under there with, like, a French fry and 1 chicken nugget.
Probably.
I literally, like, reading through this and, like, going over it, I had to read it a couple of times because I'm like, hold on, I went through the fucking drive-thru?
Yeah.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? At least pretend like you give a shit and go inside.
Yeah,
This is not an everyday sighting. You know, you hear blood, you know, missing children, and there's no fucking way that these guys didn't realize there was kids missing, because I'm sure this was the talk of, like, the town, obviously,
yeah.
the same night that all of this happened. Mm-hmm. And then you come back the next day to get the scrapings. Why the fuck didn't they take them that day? Mm-hmm. Second of all, they were lost. That was never tested. Who is this guy? Maybe he had absolutely nothing to do with it, but I think it's absolutely just fucking absurd that it wasn't even considered as an option.
Yeah.
If you don't process that evidence, then regardless if he is guilty or innocent, you're still doing your job wrong. Mm-hmm. It's got to be looked into. It's
like
wrong.
Whomever it was going through the drive-thru, it's like they were just picking up their lunch.
Yeah.
And the person with the headset was like, "Oh, should you maybe come inside? Because we called the police."
Yeah.
But I think...
Well, I don't know. I don't want my burger to get cold.
Well, I mean, I don't know that they actually ordered any food through the drive-thru.
No, I know. But
still,
that's how it seems.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm amazed
like,
then.
How do you... You're going to a crime scene. You get called to a crime scene. Why are you even pulling up to the fucking drive-thru window? Mm-hmm. You're parking your car and getting your lazy ass out. Go do your job.
But, like, here's the other logic as well, right? So obviously, our main suspects are going to be these 3 youth, let's call them youth, who listen to heavy music, you know, like wearing black clothes, and one has long hair. Obviously, that's where we should focus. Not this man in the bathroom who's covered in blood freaking out, who's covered in mud. No, not him. Nope. These fucking kids.
Yeah, no, for sure. Not
one of which was in a different county at the time.
I mean, I think that's besides the point. You know, it's not besides the point, but it is besides the fucking point to them, right? Like, I don't know.
I mean, shit. Like, I would be a suspect for this because most of my music is metal.
Yeah, well, you're a little older than what they were expecting.
Yeah, well, I'm not deep. I don't mean now, but it was the same
93.
back then.
Kidding. I was just trying to make an old person joke.
I was still in 93. I'd probably just be getting into Marilyn Manson.
Oh, I've seen him live with you.
I know.
The next kind of suspect that they had focused a lot of attention to was Terry Hobbs, who's the stepfather of the victim, Steve Branch. A lot of the stuff that I have is affidavits of Bill Wayne Stewart and Beanie Guy, which is related to court findings. A documentary film about the 93 killings west of Memphis, a film paid for and produced by well-known producer Peter Jackson, like I said before, suggests that Terry Hobbs, stepfather of victim Steve Branch, participated in the murders of the 3 boys. The filmmaker noted that the most significant piece of DNA evidence found at the crime scene was a hair found on one of the shoelaces, matched that DNA of Terry Hobbs. A second hair that was found on a tree stump near where the bodies were found matched that of David Jacoby, a friend of Terry Hobbs. They also questioned the alibi given by Hobbs and that he spent the evening of the murders with his friend, David Jacoby. Jacoby doubts whether he spent as much time with Hobbs as that night as Hobbs suggests. So it's like, okay, so you're saying A, you didn't spend time with this guy, B, you did spend some time with him. Well, now you're saying I didn't spend as much time as he's saying I spent with him. Okay, so which one fucking is it?
Yeah, no shit.
Right? Mm-hmm. And neither of them are matching up. At least, like, you know, I don't know, have a group chat about what you're going to lie about. So at least it sounds somewhat similar, right? The filmmakers also stressed that Terry Hobbs had a long history of abuse, included admitted assaults on his wife, lots of accusations of him beating his children, and assaults on neighbors. Terry Hobbs was also noted, actually, during laundry, that particular night of the murders. Jo Lynn McHoney, can't say that, she's one of Stevie's aunts, particularly noted that it was weird that he was doing laundry because this guy never, ever did laundry.
Yeah.
And the laundry he was doing was actually a lot of mud that was on his clothes. Why was there mud on his clothes?
Yeah, really?
Who knows? And one other interesting fact also is Stevie actually had a prized pocket knife that he always carried with him. There's lots of reports this kid had his pocket knife with him all the time. Well, it was found in Terry Hobbs' possessions.
Yeah, it seems odd.
I don't know, did he just leave his pocket knife home that one day? And his stepfather just magically held on to it?
It's possible. I mean, I've left my pocket knife at home sometimes by accident because I always carry one, but doubtful.
Stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something as innocent as he took it as punishment.
Yeah.
You know,
But
the
adding
kid
in
did
the-
something wrong.
Adding in the mud on the clothes.
But then say that.
everything,
But then
yeah.
say that. Say that like,
Yeah.
oh, he accidentally left it home. No, just, well, I don't know. Mm-hmm. What do you mean you don't know? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. There was also 3 other young men who claim that they have a closely guarded family secret. And in statements under oath, all 3 witnesses say that Michael Hobbs told them, and I quote, "My uncle killed 3 boys in West Memphis." So now these kids are saying, and from what I gathered from the reports, is they're actually just like playing basketball and hanging out. And this one kid just like randomly starts talking about a big family secret and like, I don't know, they're trying to like one up each other. And then you come up with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely weird, but not exactly reliable.
It's not reliable, but how would you even joke about something? I don't know.
Kids are weird.
Kids are weird, I guess.
People are weird.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. On May 5th, 1993, according to both Stewart and Guy, Terry Hobbs, David Jacoby, and 2 teenagers from a local trailer park, L.G. Hollingsworth and Buddy Lucas, showed up at his West Memphis home looking to buy some pot, which Stewart provided. While Stewart sold the boys pot, he noticed Hobbs and Jacob kissing in a pickup truck across the street. According to Stewart, Hobbs was bisexual with a preference for sex with young boys. Hobbs later stated he invited his own 10-year-old son, Bill is his name, to pool parties, which involved Stewart, because his own kid wouldn't come.
Yeah.
That's not bisexual. That's pedophilia.
Right, but the reason that had come up is, you know, why would he just magically decide to kill his stepson? Mm-hmm. So what happens is, apparently Stewart sold pot, and then he was told by Buddy Lucas to get back in the pickup truck. Hobbs, Jacob, and the 2 boys drove around town smoking pot and drinking whiskey before heading down a dirt road by Blue Beacon Wood. At that point, according to Lucas's account, Terry Hobbs asked the 2 teenagers to get out and, I quote, wrestle, while he and Jacob watched. While Lucas does not specifically say the wrestling soon turned into sexual activity involving him, L.G. Hollingworth and the other 2 men, Stewart has no doubt that in what happened, asserting that the lowered head and shame evident in the boy's face made the story clear. And I quote him, "More going on between the boys and the men than what Buddy had just told me. It was during this likely sexual activity that Chris Byers, Michael Moore, and C.B. Branch appeared on the bicycle. Wrong place, wrong time." So these kids potentially saw his own father committing sexy time watching 2 other boys commit sexy time. Mm-hmm. I mean, if this story is true, made by these boys, and, you know, the account that they had given, is that enough reason to even kill someone? What if his son rats him out and his 2 friends just saw it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
To answer your question.
No. I think I know they're kids and kids can glamorize stories and all that. So I don't know. Maybe they were buying pot and they were just trying to point the finger the other way. How did all of this happen that same night, right? Like, where was he? Why wasn't he out looking for his kids? And why do these random 3 teenagers come up with this elaborate story that actually matches each other? Whether or not it's the truth or not is, I'm sure, one fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it very well could be the truth. It's not a reason to kill.
Well, yeah. And basically, Hollingworth's confession adds more details, basically saying that Terry Hobbs became engaged after one of the boys began kicking him. He hit him on the head, and he said, this child quotes that he said, "I'm going to teach your fucking ass," and later said that the 2 older men participated in beating all 3 of the boys, and Buddy had confirmed what Hobbs had ordered the other 2 teenage boys who were with them to take the pants off the boys. Why would they take the pants off?
Yeah.
I don't know. The entire story just sounds like fucking nuts. But where does that come from, right? And I mean, I know sometimes when crimes happen, you always look at who's closest to the particular family.
Yes.
Someone maybe
Yeah,
could have
work
done
your
it,
way out.
It's family first, usually, yeah.
which is fair. I don't want to
Yeah.
say fair, but fair. I mean, I don't think these
Not
three
fair, but realistic.
I
Yeah.
don't think these three boys like went out and pissed anyone off enough to be murdered.
Yeah.
I do genuinely maybe believe that, you know, maybe they saw something they weren't supposed to see, and then one thing escalated.
Well, probably.
Whether
yeah.
it was this that happened, that they saw this like sexual assault happening, and the dad decided to kill his own stepson. I don't know. Maybe that's a reach, right? But to me, that's more plausible to me than, oh, well, these guys listen to hard rock.
Yeah. I mean,
Heavy metal.
Heavy
it must
metal.
have been Baphomet that did it, right? I don't know.
No.
Yes. Baphomet, the goat-headed female Satan logo on so much heavy metal music.
I'm going to go with a no because he has hooves for feet.
Her hoofs.
Her hoofs. Sorry, the boobs weren't obvious. Has hooves for feet, so probably doesn't know what to do with the shoelaces.
Probably not, yeah.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Devil made me do it.
So yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't know if these boys are now just saying something to say something to make a story. If maybe this is truly what happened, it was Terry Hobbs. What about the Bojangles man? I don't know. But I think that to me are two better leads than just assuming it was these three boys. But yeah, anyways, that's the story I have. So I don't know.
All right, well, thanks for sharing.
You
So
should
we-
definitely check out Paradise Lost.
Be good.
I think it was the best one I saw.
Yeah. I mean, they're on Prime Video. Actually, all of them are also on YouTube. You can watch them. So much information.
I got it from the library.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. No, not the library for me. Haven't set foot in that place in a very long time.
I went to a library a
lost.
little while ago because I got a library card just so I could take out digital books on an app that needed a library card.
Stupid.
I hate that. I hate it when I go to the library and the book that I want is only available on e-reader. And I'm like, am I in a library?
Oh, no, not
I want a
e-reader.
book.
Audiobook.
Yeah.
Audiobook.
Even worse,
Come
though.
on.
I want a
No.
book. I want to be able to smell the pages.
If I'm reading a book, physical book, it
Yeah,
has to be
clearly it's Stephen
an
King.
actual book. Yes, lots of Stephen King and Dune books and all kinds of weird shit. But
Yeah. Anyways, on weird shit. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what actually happened. I don't think these guys did it. I don't know if it was the dad. I don't know if it was Bojangles, but it's fucking weird.
This is the guy we were talking about.
oh
From the
yeah,
what's wrong with his face?
he looks like
He's
he
just
was on.
unfortunate looking.
He's on the American Letterkenny. I've never seen the show, but I've seen some highlights.
Right?
Yeah, no, he, and I mean, it doesn't also help that he's in a white tee, overalls, a stupid look on his face with a fucking almost sideways
Yeah.
cap, right? Like, I don't know. I think that family's sketchy.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely miss.
Well, and all throughout the documentary, he's just like loving the attention so much.
Yeah,
I mean, but probably doesn't know what the fuck to do with it, right? But I think why not look into him? Why not look? Because that's not the one. That's not the stepfather. That's the actual
No.
father. But
Yeah.
the stepfather, right? Like, so there's
No,
documented
that's the stepfather.
violence. Yeah, there's documented that he's beaten his kids. Neighbors have said he's done that. He's admitted to assaulting his wife and all of those things. Like,
Yeah.
how's that not a suspect when you're looking at a violent crime like this?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing too that I saw in one of the documentaries was the boys' bikes were also kind of like off to the side and hidden. If this was a satanic ritual, why the fuck would they clean up after themselves? Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think obviously they were wrongfully convicted. I think it's bullshit that they had to enter that like guilty, not guilty plea, whatever.
Yep.
I'm glad that they're out of jail. I wasn't able to find what are they doing now? Like, okay, so because these guys are out, but they pleaded guilty but not guilty, are they still continuing an investigation? Are we going to find out what actually happened here?
no, they're because they took that plea. They've still got a criminal record, so it's probably hard to find work. They're probably laying low, trying to stay out of the spotlight because everyone thinks they're guilty in that area.
But I mean, obviously they moved, right? Like none
I
of
would
them go
hope
back
so.
to the state. But I'm just saying, like, okay, so now that these guys are out and there's so much fucking evidence to disprove originally what was used to prove, or not prove their guilt, but like make the jurors believe that they're guilty.
Yeah.
Okay, so who did kill these kids? What is being done? Because they weren't mutilated. It was turtles. They were hogtied. Why was the dad's hair in the hogtie? who the fuck is this Bojangles man that was found covered in blood?
Yeah.
What kind of drive-through investigation was that? I don't know. I think that's just so many
I think
unfinished
I'll call it a
sentences.
drive-by investigation.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's so many points that are still, in my opinion, unresolved, and that, you know, there's big question marks beside. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's just a disgusting case all around.
Well, it's sad because
Yeah.
I mean they're babies,
Yeah.
right? So
Kids murdered, a bunch of guys' lives ruined, and the real killer is still out there laughing, basically.
and I don't know. It's been so long. I don't think that I'll ever get true justice.
Probably
you know,
not. It'll
the
probably be
victims,
a
but
deathbed confession at most.
I doubt it. I don't know.
Yeah, but at most, I think that'd be what it would be.
Yeah, I don't know. This is what it is. But yeah, that's my case.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. This is a bit longer, I think, than a lot of our half pints of crime are going to be, but it was just
A lot.
It's a lot to the story. So if you've enjoyed this, some of them will be shorter, some will be this length. But if you support us on Patreon, we will be giving you episodes like this once a month. And some of them will tie in with our theme. Some will just be random,
Bullshit.
random bullshit stories we find. But this episode, if you're listening to it on our regular feed, we'll have some ads in it. But on Patreon, like all of our episodes, it'll be ad-free. You'll get them earlier than everyone else. The average Half Pints of Crime will only be available to Patreon supporters. So if you want to go to patreon.com/brewcrime, you can support us just like our favorite people, 3 Beers In Podcast, Amber, Ange, Daniela, Nina's mom, Faves of Our Lives Podcast, and True Crime Nana. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Fancy.
Crack that open. I'm just going to quickly change seats.
And
I still have this shitty one.
Just okay. My leather coat on the leather chair is making funny fart sounds, and I don't want to put up with that.
sure,
Leather
it's
on
the leather on
Yeah,
leather.
leather on leather.
Okay.
Leather on fake pleather.
Yeah.
Okay. There is lactose. I think that's a picture of cheese. Isn't milk and cheese, which is lactose?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Just
There's also a
sounds
picture of
funny.
a fish on it.
I don't think
Oh.
there's fish in it.
Ooh.
Who knows?
Oh, it's
Is it
oxygen
parents?
fishing caps. Fixing caps. I don't fucking know.
Pairs with fish and cheese.
Nailed it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Suspicion quickly flew. Quickly flew. That doesn't make sense. The first...
Fucking case.
Despite a human chain making a shoulder-to-shoulder shirt... that wasn't Invisalign. Despite a human chain making a shoulder-to... And I don't even think that's Invisalign. I think that's just who I am as a person. Let's try the sentence again. Later, expert testimony disputed this, despite finding hold on. But nope, just kidding. To take that out, that's a bad sentence.
Okay, taking out the sentence right now.
Also met Larry Davis while... Oh, sorry. So many S's. Uncertainties in how the actual murders were... I use the word actual 3 times in the sentence. Okay, let's try it again.
Actually?
So some of the uncertainty highlighted the prosecution insistence. I can't say the word insistence. It's just
Okay.
I'm lisping.
And lisp.
Let's just start that again. And a particularly large wound on Stephen Branch's father face.
Let's try that again.
So Renault. Fuck me. Sorry. I have so much extra saliva in my mouth because of these things that some of these words that don't even have S's, I'm just like blim blim.
Could you not just take it out while you're talking for this? So you're not...
No, because I only get 2 hours a day that I have taken that I take them out because I'm supposed to wear them for 22 hours a day.
Oh, really? Oh, I
so
didn't know that.
that's my feeding time.
And that's when you start snapping.
I'm fucking hangry. Oh my god! Don't even get me started. Allowing the bodies to decay in the creek bank. Fuck.
Do you want some more of this?
I haven't even had this yet because I've been just mouth
Do you want more of
breathing
it,
over
though, or
here. No.
Okay.
Okay, let's start it again.
The bank.
Mouth breathing. Oh, wait.
That's me.
Sorry.
You okay?
I swallowed that wrong. You can
That's
go
what she
now.
said.
Oh, God.
Oh, I'll be here all day, guys. Okay.
You probably will be.
That's right. Yeah, right? It's only 1:16. So, fuck, I was going to say innocent. Oh, that is the word. It's going to be a long day. Anyways, I lost my train of thought. Forget that. Just scratch all of that.
We'll save it for the end.
Sure.
Bye, train of thought.
I watched Inside Out today also while doing laundry, and I literally feel like joy just...
God, that's a good movie.
It is
Yes, it's on Disney Plus.
Yes, which I have.
I have the movie, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm going to get into that after I figure out where my spot is.
Good plan. It's good to have a plan.
That most significant piece was obviously the DNA. Wow. Okay, we got to start it again because I didn't talk about the documentary.
Okay.